I never expected a community talent show to change my life at 60 years old. There I was, sitting at the judges' table in Nashville's Oak Hill Community Center, clipboard in hand, watching amateur singers butcher classic songs when she walked onto that makeshift stage. The woman had brunette hair that caught the overhead lights just right, and when she looked out at the small audience, her green eyes seemed to find mine immediately. She was maybe 35, dressed in flowing black pants and a fitted top that moved with her body as she positioned herself center stage. "I'll be performing a contemporary dance piece," she announced, her voice carrying that slight nervousness performers get before they bare their souls. "I've been judging these community events for 3 years now, ever since I started looking for ways to fill time between my rowing commentary gigs for ESPN. Usually, I grade performances with professional detachment, scribbling notes about timing and presentation. But when this woman began to move, something shifted in my chest. Her body flowed like water, every gesture deliberate yet natural. She was telling a story without words, something about longing and searching, and damn if I wasn't completely mesmerized. I found myself leaning forward, pen forgotten in my hand. Then it happened. Mid-spin, she caught my eye again, and stumbled slightly, her perfect rhythm breaking for just a heartbeat. A flush crept up her neck as she recovered, but I saw that moment of vulnerability, that crack in her performance facade. She finished strong, arms extended toward the ceiling in a move that made my breath catch. The small crowd applauded politely, but I felt like I'd witnessed something personal, intimate even. After the show, I was gathering my papers when she appeared at my table. Up close, I could see tiny freckles across her nose, and the way her lips curved into an uncertain smile. "Excuse me, you're Kennedy Allen, right? The rowing commentator?" I nodded, surprised she recognized me. "That's me. I'm Fiona Perry. I wanted to thank you for the encouraging nod during my performance. It helped when I lost my footing." "You recovered beautifully," I said, meaning it. "Professional dancer?" She laughed, a sound that did something dangerous to my equilibrium. "Makeup artist, actually. Dancing's just my therapy." "Well, your therapy is quite effective." Something passed between us in that moment, a recognition neither of us expected. The community center buzzed with departing families, but we stood there like we'd created our own private bubble. "Would you maybe like to get coffee sometime?" The words came out of my mouth before my brain could stop them. I mean, to talk about performance or... "Yes," she said quickly, then blushed at her own eagerness. "I'd like that very much." That coffee date turned into something I hadn't expected. 3 weeks later, Fiona called me with a business proposition that made my pulse quicken for entirely unprofessional reasons. "I have a big client who needs makeup for a major broadcast," she said over the phone, her voice carefully neutral. "ESPN rowing championship coverage. Interested?" I nearly dropped the phone. "You're kidding." "Dead serious. They want someone who understands the sport, someone who can make the commentator look authoritative but approachable. Apparently, my reputation for working with older clients preceded me. Older clients. The phrase stung a little, but I pushed it aside. "When and where?" "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., my studio." Her studio was a converted garage behind a craftsman house in Music Row, all mirrors and professional lighting. When I arrived, Fiona was setting up her station, wearing a simple black dress that hugged her curves in ways that made me forget I was there for work. "Sit," she said, patting the high chair. "Let me work my magic." As she began applying foundation, her fingers moved across my face with professional precision. But there was something else there, a gentleness that felt personal. "You know," she said, working around my eyes, "I've been watching your broadcasts online. You're really good at this." 20 years of practice, I replied, trying to ignore how her proximity was affecting me. "It's more than that. You make people care about rowing. That's a gift." She stepped back to assess her work, and I caught her studying my reflection in the mirror with something deeper than professional interest. "What is it?" I asked. "Nothing, just..." She hesitated, then continued working. "Do you ever worry about aging out of television?" The question hit closer to home than I expected. "Every day." "Why?" "Because you're stunning, and I don't think you see it." Her hand paused on my cheek. "The network executives are idiots if they think age diminishes what you bring to the table." Something in her tone made me turn to look at her directly. She was close enough that I could see the sincerity in those green eyes. Close enough that when she started to pull away, I caught her wrist. Fiona. Yeah? Thank you for saying that. She smiled, and before either of us could think better of it, she leaned down and pressed her lips to mine. Soft, tentative, but unmistakably intentional. When she pulled back, we were both breathing differently. I should finish your makeup, she whispered. Probably. But neither of us moved for a long moment. Later, at the broadcast booth, I felt different, confident in a way I hadn't in months. The makeup was flawless, but it was more than that. It was knowing someone saw me as more than an aging commentator fighting to stay relevant. You look great today, Kennedy, my producer said as we prepared to go live. Thanks. New makeup artist? Well, whatever she's doing, keep her. During a commercial break, I spotted Fiona in the production area, watching me work. When our eyes met, she gave me a small wave that made my heart skip. After the broadcast, I found her waiting by my car. So, she said, how does it feel to be nationally televised while wearing my handiwork? Pretty damn good, I admitted. Want to celebrate? What did you have in mind? I looked at this woman who'd somehow made me feel alive again, who'd kissed me like she meant it, who'd given me back a piece of confidence I thought I'd lost. Dinner. Somewhere we can talk about things that have nothing to do with work. Her smile was answer enough. Dinner led to something I hadn't expected at this stage of my life. Fiona started showing up at my rowing events, not just as someone passing time, but genuinely interested in understanding the sport that had defined my career. Explain the stroke rate to me again, she said during the Music City regatta, leaning against the broadcast booth railing. Her hair caught the morning sunlight streaming across Percy Priest Lake. Watch lane 3, I said, pointing to the 8-person crew cutting through the water. They're holding 28 strokes per minute. Higher rates mean more speed but less endurance. She nodded, focused entirely on the race. It's like dance timing, isn't it? Everything has to sync perfectly. Exactly. The fact that she got it, that she made those connections, impressed me more than I cared to admit. After the races, she'd walk with me along the dock, asking questions about technique and strategy. Other commentators started noticing her, started noticing the way I lit up when she was around. New girlfriend, Kennedy? Jake Martinez from the Rowing Federation asked one afternoon. The word girlfriend sat strangely. At 60, I felt too old for girlfriends, but too alive for whatever came next. She's a friend, I said, but even I could hear how unconvincing that sounded. 3 weeks into our routine, Fiona invited me to her studio after hours. I found her cleaning brushes at her station, a bottle of wine already open on the counter. Rough day? I asked. Bridezilla season, she said, handing me a glass. 3 different women convinced their wedding will be ruined if their makeup isn't perfect. And will it be? Ruined? No. Perfect. That's not really the point. She sat in the makeup chair, looking suddenly tired. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just helping people pretend to be someone they're not. I studied her reflection in the mirror. Is that what you think you do with me? No, she said quickly. With you, I feel like I'm revealing something that was already there. The wine was decent, but the conversation was better. She told me about learning makeup from her grandmother, about failed relationships with men who never understood her need for independence. I told her about the loneliness of traveling to events alone, about watching younger commentators get opportunities I'd earned through decades of experience. Do you ever get scared, she asked, of being forgotten? Every broadcast, I admitted. But less when you're watching. She looked at me then with something I hadn't seen in years from anyone. Not pity for aging, not professional courtesy, but genuine desire. Kennedy. Yeah? I want to kiss you again. Really kiss you this time. I set down my wine glass and stood. What's stopping you? She rose from the chair and crossed to me, her movements as graceful as during her dance performance. This time when her lips met mine, there was nothing tentative about it. Her hands found my face, fingers threading through my silver hair, and I tasted wine and possibility on her tongue. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. We should probably talk about what this means, she whispered against my lips. Thunder rumbled outside, and rain started pattering against the studio windows. As if on cue, the lights flickered. My apartment's just upstairs, she said. If you want to continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable, I looked at this woman who'd somehow made me feel desired again, who kissed me like I was something precious rather than something discarded. Lead the way. The storm was getting worse as we climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment above the studio. By the time we reached her living room, rain was hammering the windows and the power had gone out completely. "I have candles," she said, moving through the darkness with practiced ease. As she lit candles around the room, I watched the way the flickering light played across her face, highlighting the curve of her lips, the intensity in her green eyes. "Better?" she asked. "Much." She came back to me then, and this time neither of us pretended we were just talking. That night changed everything between us. The candlelight flickered across Fiona's skin as she led me to her bedroom, our hands intertwined, both of us trembling with anticipation and nerves. What happened next was tender and passionate, a careful exploration of each other that left us both breathless and amazed. Her touch was gentle but confident, and I felt beautiful in a way I hadn't in years. When we finally lay together afterward, her head on my shoulder, I wondered if I'd ever felt this complete with anyone before. Morning light filtered through her bedroom curtains, and reality hit me like cold water. I was 60 years old, lying naked next to a 35-year-old woman I'd known for less than 2 months. The age gap felt enormous in daylight. Fiona stirred beside me, her green eyes opening slowly. "Morning, beautiful." "Morning," I said, suddenly self-conscious about my body, about the lines around my eyes, about everything. She must have sensed my tension because she propped herself up on her elbow. "What's wrong?" "This is crazy, Fiona. Look at us. I'm old enough to be your mother." "You're not my mother," she said firmly. "You're the woman who makes me feel things I didn't know I could feel." I sat up, pulling the sheet around me. "But what are we doing? What is this?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Does it have to be something defined right now?" Before I could answer, her phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and frowned. "Work emergency. I have to go handle a bride who's having a meltdown about her makeup trial." The spell was broken. I gathered my clothes while she showered, feeling awkward in a way I hadn't since high school. By the time she emerged, I was fully dressed and ready to flee. "Kennedy, wait," she called as I headed for the door. "I should go." "You have work. I have a broadcast this afternoon." "Are we okay?" I looked at her standing there in her bathrobe, hair still damp, looking younger than ever. "I don't know." The drive home gave me too much time to think. What was I doing? Starting a relationship at my age with someone who had decades of life ahead of her? It felt selfish, maybe even a little desperate. At the studio that afternoon, I tried to focus on my job, but my mind kept drifting. During the broadcast, I stumbled over a simple explanation of sculling technique, something I could do in my sleep. "You okay in there?" my producer asked during commercial. "Fine. Just tired." But Jake Martinez, my booth partner for 15 years, wasn't buying it. After we signed off, he lingered. "Spill it, Kennedy. What's going on with you?" "Nothing." "Bull. You've been different lately. Happier, until today. Now you look like someone stole your dog." I sighed. "It's complicated." "Woman trouble?" I shot him a look. "Since when do you care about my love life?" "Since it started affecting your work. You've been calling races like you're distracted. Today was the worst I've seen." He was right. I'd been so caught up in whatever was happening with Fiona that I'd let it bleed into the one area of my life that had always been consistent. I might be getting involved with someone inappropriate. "Married?" "Young." Jake laughed. "Kennedy, you're 60, not dead. If she makes you happy, what's the problem?" 25 years is the problem." "Damn, that is young." He considered this. "But I've seen you these past few weeks. You've been lighter, more engaged. Don't throw that away because of a number." That evening, Fiona texted me, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for 20 minutes before responding, "Tomorrow. I need some space tonight." But space didn't help. I lay in bed thinking about how she'd felt in my arms, how she'd looked at me like I was everything she'd been searching for. I thought about the way she lit up when I explained rowing techniques, how she made me laugh without trying. By morning, I'd convinced myself that we needed to slow down, maybe step back entirely, but when I saw her name on my caller ID, I answered on the first ring. "Hi." "Hi yourself. Look, I know yesterday morning was weird, but I need you to know something." What? I'm not going anywhere, Kennedy. Whatever this is between us, I'm not running. Age is just a number, and chemistry like ours doesn't come along often. I closed my eyes, feeling my resolve crumble. Fiona, have dinner with me tonight. Let me cook for you. Let's figure this out together. That dinner never happened. 3 days before our planned evening together, everything went to hell in the most unexpected way. I was reviewing race footage in my home office when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Kennedy Allen? This is Marcus Webb, Fiona Perry's former business partner. The name meant nothing to me, but his tone put me on edge. What can I do for you, Mr. Webb? I have a proposition that could save your career. May I come over? It's about the network cuts at ESPN. My blood chilled. The rumors had been circulating for weeks that they were trimming older talent, but I hadn't received any official word. What cuts? The ones coming next month. But I have a solution. An hour later, Marcus Webb sat in my living room, a polished man in his 40s with an expensive suit and a pitch that sounded too good to be true. He claimed to represent a consortium of investors launching a new sports media network focused on women's athletics. We need experienced voices like yours, he said, sliding a glossy folder across my coffee table. This isn't charity, Kennedy. We're offering equity positions to founding commentators. The initial investment required was substantial, but not impossible. $50,000 for a stake in what could be the future of sports broadcasting. I need time to think, I said. Of course. But I should mention that Fiona recommended you specifically. She's already committed to handling makeup for our inaugural broadcasts. That stopped me cold. Fiona knows about this? She's been instrumental in identifying key talent. Didn't she mention it? She hadn't. That night, I called her, but it went to voicemail. I tried again the next morning with the same result. Finally, she texted, "Crazy week with clients. Rain check on dinner?" Instead of responding, I drove to her studio. I found her putting finishing touches on a bride's makeup, but something in my expression must have alarmed her because she quickly wrapped up the session. Kennedy, what's wrong? Marcus Webb came to see me yesterday. Her face went pale. Oh no. Oh no? That's your response? He said you recommended me for some sports network investment. I can explain. Please do, because right now I'm wondering what the hell is going on. She locked the studio door and turned to face me. Marcus called me 3 weeks ago. He said ESPN was planning budget cuts that would affect older commentators. He said he had a way to help, but he needed to identify talent worth saving. And you gave him my name without asking me? I was trying to protect you, she said, her voice breaking. I thought if there was a chance to get you into something better before ESPN could push you out. So, you decided to manage my career behind my back? No, it wasn't like that. I was scared, Kennedy. Scared of losing you to corporate politics. I stared at this woman I'd been falling for, trying to process what she'd done. Did you invest in this thing? Her silence was answer enough. Damn it, Fiona. How much? $15,000. It was everything I had saved. And you encouraged me to invest too? No. I specifically told Marcus not to approach you directly. I wanted to research it more first. But he had approached me, and something about her story wasn't adding up. What exactly did he promise you? That if I helped identify talent, I'd get preferred makeup artist status with the new network? Jesus, Fiona. Do you have any paperwork, contracts, anything official? The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. We need to call this in, I said, pulling out my phone. Call what in? This smells like fraud, and if it is, we're both screwed. 2 hours later, we sat in Detective Sarah Morrison's office at the Nashville Metro Police Department. Morrison was a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in white-collar crime, and she listened to our story with growing concern. Mr. Webb has been on our radar, she said finally. We've had 3 similar reports in the past month, all targeting people in media and entertainment. Are you saying this is definitely a scam? Fiona asked. I'm saying you should assume it is until proven otherwise. Did either of you actually transfer money? Not yet, I said. I did, Fiona whispered. Yesterday. Right before Kennedy came to see me. Morrison's expression darkened. We need to move fast then. These operations typically disappear once they hit a certain threshold of collected funds. As we left the police station, neither Fiona nor I spoke until we reached our cars. Kennedy, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said. You made decisions about my life without consulting me. You got yourself swindled and nearly took me down with you. I was trying to help. By lying to me, by keeping secrets. I wasn't lying, You just what? Decided you knew what was best for me? Tears started streaming down her face. I thought I was going to lose you. Well, congratulations, you just did. The next morning brought the news I'd been dreading. Detective Morrison called at 7 a.m. with an update that made my stomach drop. The consortium is completely fake, she said without preamble. Webb disappeared overnight. We found the office he was renting completely cleaned out. I closed my eyes, thinking about Fiona's $15,000. Any chance of recovery? Minimal. These guys are professionals. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen staring at cold coffee, trying to process how badly I'd misjudged everything. Not just the scam, but Fiona's motives. Had she really been trying to protect me, or was there something else going on? The worst part was how much I missed her. Even angry, even feeling betrayed. I couldn't shake the memory of how right it felt to wake up beside her. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Please let me explain properly. I deleted it without responding. By noon, she was at my front door. I watched through the peephole as she knocked, looking tired and desperate. Part of me wanted to let her in, but a larger part couldn't risk getting hurt again. Kennedy, I know you're in there, she called out. Your car's in the driveway. I waited until I heard her footsteps retreat before looking out the window. She'd left an envelope on my doormat. Inside was a check for $15,000 and a letter written in her careful handwriting. Kennedy, I know money doesn't fix what I did, but this represents every cent I can pull together from credit cards and a loan against my equipment. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that every decision I made came from loving you, not from trying to manipulate you. I've never felt for anyone what I feel for you, and losing that possibility is punishment enough for my stupidity. Fiona. The check was real, drawn on her business account, dated that morning. She'd liquidated everything to try to make this right. I called my bank to confirm the funds were available before calling Detective Morrison. She gave you the money back? Morrison sounded surprised. That's not typical behavior for someone running a long con. You think she was part of it? I'm starting to doubt that. We've been tracking Webb's operation, and everything suggests he targeted her first, then used her connections to reach you. Classic recruitment pattern. So she really was trying to help? Stupidly, yes. But her heart seems to have been in the right place. That afternoon I drove to Fiona's studio. The sign was gone from the front, and when I peered through the windows, the space looked half empty. A neighbor told me she'd been packing for 2 days straight. I found her at her apartment, loading boxes into her car. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Moving? I asked. She startled, dropping a box of makeup supplies. Kennedy, I didn't expect to see you. Where are you going? Atlanta. My cousin has a salon there. Said I could start over. Running away? Her face hardened. Starting over. There's a difference. I bent to help her collect scattered brushes from the dropped box. You didn't have to give me the money back. Yes, I did. It was my mistake that put you at risk. Detective Morrison says Webb was targeting you too. That you were a victim, not an accomplice. Does that make you feel better about what happened between us? I straightened, looking at this woman who'd turned my world upside down in every possible way. No. It makes me feel like an ass for not listening to your side before cutting you off. You had every right to be angry. Maybe. But I also had feelings for you that were stronger than anger, and I let pride override them. She stopped packing and looked at me directly for the first time. Had? Past tense? Have, I corrected. Present tense. Very present tense. Even after everything? Especially after everything. You made a mistake trying to protect me. I made a bigger one walking away without fighting for us. She leaned against her car, looking exhausted. I don't know how to fix this, Kennedy. We figure it out together. Like you said we would. But the trust is something we rebuild, if you want to. For the first time in days, she smiled. I want to. More than anything. I reached for her hand. Then stop packing and come home with me. Just like that? Just like that. We'll deal with Webb and the police and whatever else comes up. But we'll do it together this time. She looked at her half-packed car, then back at me. Okay. Rebuilding trust turned out to be harder than either of us anticipated. Fiona moved back into her studio apartment, but we both felt the weight of what had happened between us. The next 2 weeks were awkward, filled with careful conversations and tentative gestures that felt nothing like the easy chemistry we'd had before. The investigation into Webb's fraud schemes stalled. Detective Morrison kept us updated, but the trail had gone cold after he disappeared. Other victims came forward, all with similar stories about investment opportunities that seemed too good to be true. He's probably in another state by now, running the same scam, Morrison told us during one of our check-ins. These guys are like parasites. They move on when the host gets too sick. I threw myself into work, taking on extra commentary assignments to avoid thinking about how empty my house felt without Fiona. ESPN hadn't made any official announcements about budget cuts, but the rumors persisted, making every broadcast feel potentially temporary. During a regatta in Chattanooga, Jake pulled me aside after we finished our coverage. You look miserable, he said bluntly. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm serious, Kennedy. Whatever happened with your young lady, fix it. You were happy for the first time in years, and now you're back to being this shell of yourself. It's complicated. Everything worthwhile is complicated. That doesn't mean you give up on it. That same week, I learned that Fiona was struggling financially. The money she'd repaid me had wiped out her savings, and several clients had canceled bookings when word spread about her connection to the fraud case. Nashville's makeup artist community was small, and gossip traveled fast. I found her working late one evening, doing makeup for a low-budget music video shoot. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her green eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. How many jobs are you working? I asked. 4, she admitted. Maybe 5 if this wedding photographer calls back. This is my fault. Let me help. No. Her response was immediate and firm. I got myself into this mess. We got into this mess, together. She finished powdering the video's lead actor and stepped back. I can handle it, Kennedy. But she couldn't, and we both knew it. 3 days later, she fainted during a bridal makeup session. The bride's mother called me because my number was listed as her emergency contact, something neither of us had changed despite everything that happened. I found Fiona at Vanderbilt Hospital's emergency room, hooked up to an 4 and looking pale as paper. Dehydration and exhaustion, the doctor explained. She needs rest and regular meals. When's the last time you ate? He asked Fiona directly. Yesterday morning, she mumbled. Jesus, Fiona. After the doctor left, we sat in uncomfortable silence. The beeping of medical equipment filled the space between us. I've been thinking about Atlanta again, she said finally. Because of this? Because I'm tired of feeling like a burden. To you, to my clients, to everyone. You're not a burden. Aren't I? You're sitting in a hospital because I couldn't take care of myself. I wanted to argue, but she looked so defeated that anger seemed pointless. Instead, I reached for her hand. Do you remember what you told me that first night, about not running? That was before I nearly destroyed both our lives. You made a mistake. We both made mistakes. That doesn't mean we stop trying. She squeezed my fingers weakly. I don't know how to get past this, Kennedy. Every time I look at you, I remember how I let you down. And every time I look at you, I remember how it felt to be loved by someone who cared enough to make stupid decisions trying to protect me. That's a generous way to put it. It's the truth. A nurse came in to check Fiona's vitals, and the moment passed. But something had shifted between us, a crack in the wall we'd both built. Come home with me, I said when the nurse left. Just until you're back on your feet. Kennedy. As friends. As whatever we need to be. But don't disappear to Atlanta because you think that's what I want. She studied my face for a long moment. What do you want? You, I said simply. Complicated, stubborn, beautiful you. I want to figure out how to trust each other again. I want to remember why we worked in the first place. And if we can't, then at least we tried. Fiona recovered at my house for the next week, and slowly we started talking again. Really talking, not just the careful conversations we'd been having since the web disaster. It started with small things. She'd comment on my commentary style while watching me prepare for broadcasts. I'd ask about her makeup techniques while she worked on freelance clients in my dining room, which we'd temporarily converted to a studio space. "You're getting better at the technical explanations," she said one evening, reviewing footage from my latest regatta coverage. "Years of practice explaining rowing to people who don't care about rowing. I care about rowing now." The simple statement hit me harder than it should have. Since when? Since I started caring about the person explaining it. We were sitting on my couch, a safe distance between us, but something in her tone made me look at her directly. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't carefully guarding her expression. "Fiona, I know we're taking things slow. I know we're rebuilding trust. But I need you to know that what I feel for you didn't change just because I messed up." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Detective Morrison's name appeared on the screen. "We found him," she said without preamble. "Webb. He's in custody in Memphis, running the same scam on music industry people." The relief in Fiona's eyes was immediate. "Does this mean?" "It means we have a real chance at recovering some of the money, and it means your names are cleared officially." After hanging up, we looked at each other across the couch. "So, what now?" Fiona asked. "I don't know. What do you want now?" Instead of answering, she moved closer to me. "I want to stop being afraid that you're going to realize I'm not worth the trouble. And I want to stop being afraid that you're going to decide I'm too old and set in my ways for whatever comes next." "We're both idiots," she said softly. "Probably." She reached for my hand. "Can I try something?" I nodded, and she leaned over to kiss me. Soft, tentative, but with an honesty that had been missing from everything between us lately. When she pulled back, we were both smiling. "Better?" she asked. "Much better." 3 days later, Detective Morrison called with even better news. Webb had agreed to plea bargain, and part of the deal involved restitution for his victims. Fiona would get most of her money back, and the cloud hanging over both our reputations would officially lift. "I can finally stop feeling like a criminal," Fiona said after we hung up with Morrison. "You never were a criminal, just someone who cared too much." "Is that possible? Caring too much?" I pulled her closer to me on the couch. "Not when it comes to the right person." That night, she didn't go to the guest room. We made love slowly, carefully, rediscovering each other with a tenderness that felt deeper than our first time. Her touch was reverent, like she was memorizing every inch of my skin, and when I moved over her, she whispered my name like a prayer. Afterward, we lay tangled together, both of us crying a little from relief and joy, and the simple miracle of being together again. "I love you," she said into the darkness. "I love you too. Even after everything? Especially after everything. We survived the worst of it, Fiona. Everything else is just details." The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and found Fiona in my kitchen, making breakfast and humming. She looked lighter than she had in months. "Morning, beautiful," I said, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "Morning yourself." I was thinking, about what? About Detective Morrison's suggestion yesterday. About using our experience to help other fraud victims. Morrison had mentioned that victim advocacy groups were always looking for people willing to share their stories, to help others recognize the warning signs. "You want to do that?" "I want to do something meaningful with what happened to us. Turn it into something positive." I kissed the side of her neck. "I think that's a beautiful idea." "Really? Really? We could be a team. Use your story from the victim side and my media contacts to reach people." She turned in my arms. "A team?" In every sense of the word. The smile that spread across her face was worth every moment of pain we'd been through. "I like the sound of that," she said, and kissed me like she meant it. 6 months later, I stood at the podium of the Sports Media Excellence Awards in downtown Nashville, looking out at an audience that included network executives, fellow commentators, and one beautiful brunette makeup artist sitting in the front row. When ESPN approached me about developing an investigative sports journalism show, I thought they were crazy. Why would a rowing commentator be qualified to expose financial fraud in athletics? The audience chuckled, but Fiona's encouraging smile gave me strength to continue. Then I realized that my qualification came from being targeted by that exact kind of fraud. From learning firsthand how predators exploit the insecurities of aging professionals in our industry. The investigation series, aptly named Deep Waters, had launched 3 months ago. Our first episode exposed a scheme targeting retired Olympic athletes with fake endorsement deals. The second revealed how sports agents were embezzling from their older clients. Each episode featured Fiona's expertise in identifying the psychological manipulation tactics used by con artists. This award belongs to my production partner, I continued, who taught me that vulnerability can be strength, and that the best stories come from our worst mistakes. Fiona stood up as I gestured toward her, her green eyes shining with unshed tears. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, we walked hand in hand through the Nashville streets toward her car. She'd moved back into my house officially 2 months ago, but she still kept her studio for work. So, she said, swinging our joined hands between us, how does it feel to be an award-winning investigative journalist? Pretty damn good. How does it feel to be dating an award-winning investigative journalist? Exhausting, she said with a grin. All those late nights editing episodes, research sessions that go until dawn. Don't forget the makeup sessions for my on-camera appearances. Oh, those are my favorite part. We stopped walking, and she turned to face me under a streetlight. At 36, she looked more confident than the woman I'd met at that community talent show. Success agreed with her. Kennedy? Yeah? I want to tell you something I should have said months ago. My heart skipped. What's that? That first night I danced at the talent show? I saw you in the judges' table before I even started, and I performed that entire routine for you. Just you. Seriously? I'd been watching your broadcasts for months, admiring you from afar. When I saw you were judging the show, I entered just for the chance to get your attention. I stared at her. So the stumble during your dance wasn't because I was nervous about performing. It was because you were looking at me like I mattered, and it threw me completely off balance. You little schemer. She laughed and pulled me closer. Says the woman who asked me out for coffee before I could work up the courage to ask her. We were both scheming then. Best schemes of our lives. I kissed her there under the streetlight, not caring who might see 2 women in love in the middle of downtown Nashville. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. Come on, I said. Let's go home. Our home? Our home. As we walked to the car, Fiona's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Morrison. Saw the award coverage on the news. Couldn't be prouder of how you two turned this around. Webb got 12 years, by the way. Justice served. Perfect timing, Fiona said, showing me the message. Perfect everything, I replied, opening the car door for her. A year ago, I'd been a lonely commentator worried about aging out of relevance. Tonight, I was half of a team that was changing how sports media handled fraud protection. More importantly, I was in love with a woman who'd seen my potential even when I couldn't see it myself. What are you thinking about? Fiona asked as we drove home. About how wrong I was when I thought 60 meant it was too late for new beginnings. And now? Now, I think 60 might be the perfect time to start the best chapter yet. She reached over and took my hand. I love our story. Me too. And we're just getting started.